Recording. And I just want to welcome everyone to this last class that we had scheduled, a 4-part series tonight, The Science of Happiness with Dr. George Place. And he is going to just tell us what is known about happiness. And hopefully there'll be some things that some of us will be able to apply, to things that we do. And improve our happiness. So I'll turn it over to George. And at the end, I'm going to put a survey in the chat. And I'll also email that link out to you as well. And we really appreciate your feedback. Thank you, George, for sharing all of this great information with us.
Oh, it's my pleasure, Erica, and thanks for giving me the chance to do it. Speaking of happy, I got up real quick to close my office door so that my co-worker across the hall is not unhappy with how loud I talk. So I'm really excited to share some of this information. Obviously, this category, like so many of the categories we've been talking about in this series, it's huge. And there's no way I could even give it justice in weeks of presentation, but hopefully you're going to get some resources and you can definitely dive deeper in this science, because it is a wealth of information. And I'll tell you, information that will really change your level of happiness. It's very applicable, and this is all research based. So first, of course, I always want to point out our website. Go and visit it, and you can get up to speed on programs that we're offering. Of course, our local food program is going strong. We just had a local food cooking class last night. And one of the best ways to know when those are happening, jump on our website or get signed up for our newsletter. By the way, the new local food guide is out. And so that's the local food guide for 2021. And I encourage you to check it out. In fact, I need to update my photo. It looks different than this. This is the old food guide. Geez, I need to update myself here. Farmers markets are going strong. Get out there and support our local farmers, of course. Make a relationship with your food. You can buy directly from farmers if you look in that food guide. And here's the schedule for the next cooking classes. April's doing one a month, and there's all kinds of fun things going on.
George, okay, do you get to taste those recipes?
Yeah, sometimes I do. I missed them yesterday. The summer has gotten a little crazy, so I'm running around, and I didn't get any of the samples yesterday. I was a little sad
I'm
about
so
that.
Sorry. It looked so amazing. It was a tomato tart. Oh my gosh, it looked beautiful. And then a blueberry granita.
I heard that those were going to be the featured items.
So. April is so good.
Yeah. She's great. Well, normally she tests those recipes out on me, and I don't give her very good feedback. The only thing I can say is more. They're always very good. So anyway, all right, let's jump into it. Really, this is oftentimes what we're talking about, right? Because the truth of the matter is, I think when we suffer and we feel unhappy, it's because we have scattered minds. And the simple solution may simply be that scattered minds can't be present. And if we're not able to be present, it's very difficult to feel peaceful. Really, the only place where we truly live is in the present moment. And this may seem trite, but it is in fact the key to addressing some of the stresses and challenges that we face. Really, what you should be asking, and we all should be asking, is why is it so hard to live in the present moment, right? I mean, we all know this. Everyone has heard this. Oh, your life only happens now. But as you begin to observe your mind, our mind continually wants to go back to something that we did, ruminate about it, maybe gloat about it, regret, however that is, or fast forward and think, what do I have to do tomorrow? What about next week? And eagerly anticipate or worry. And so often we miss the flavors of what's happening now. So let's dive into that a little bit. Minor and not so minor conflict and drama, it's just simply part of the human experience, right? We live with other people. And sometimes negative interactions can be a real source of stress for us. But I think all of us know, or maybe even we've been this person before, where we're in the midst of conflict and somehow we can find peace. Is it possible to do this on a regular basis? Is it possible that this could become a practice for us? I like to think about the dramas of life, sometimes small dramas, sometimes really large dramas, right? Significantly difficult things happen to people. Cancer diagnosis, end of life, death of lost ones, tremendous suffering. I mean, there are very serious things going on in the lives of people. Sometimes these dramas and conflicts and other difficulties in life, it's a little bit like a movie, a scary movie or a thriller movie. And when you're watching a movie and it's a good movie, I know all of us have had this experience. We are just absolutely captured by the movie. In fact, who hasn't had the experience where a movie made your heart rate increase, right? Probably, if you're like me, you've jumped out of your seat before. Well, think about that. That's actually pretty amazing. We become so engrossed in a movie that it affects our physiology. It affects our blood pressure. I can tell you there's some movies I don't even want to watch them. They're too stressful. It's just a movie, right? But it affects our physiology. There's a trick that can teach you a lot about the science of happiness and meditation for that matter. If you're in a scary movie, whether it be in the theater or in your home, if you simply start looking around the edge of the movie, you start looking at the seats, you start looking at maybe the curtains, whatever it is around the theater, the things that remind you this is just a movie, all of a sudden it's not scary at all. In fact, it's kind of impossible to be scared once you start staring at the back of the head of the person sitting in front of you and you remember, oh my gosh, that shark is just a robot and that's just an actor. You can almost, take yourself out of the situation completely, right? I always do this if I start to get dizzy in a movie, if they're doing too many moving shots. I also find myself doing this if the movie is a little boring, but this is an excellent thing to remember. I love this metaphor because it is in fact the same for the dramas of life. You're in a conflict moment and all of a sudden the emotions become very high. And in fact, if you are in a working situation, we train about this all the time. I know as a manager, I am trained on how to manage conflict and have difficult conversations with people. There's a whole series of training we do that's quite effective called Crucial Conversations. And one of the keys in having a successful interaction like this is you keep in mind, just like the movie, you keep in mind the outline. Well, how do I do that? In my own body, the outline of the theater, so to speak, in this metaphor is my breath. It's how I feel in my legs. It's feeling my body from the inside, not getting swept up in the moment. Hey, easier said than done. And I fail at this all the time. And I'm okay about that. I forgive myself for failing at this all the time. But I do realize this is the technique. This ability to, for me specifically, the ability to reconnect with my breath. When I'm getting swept up in the conflict, swept up in the drama, it's like being swept up in the movie. If in that moment I can connect with breath, it is like looking at the outline of the movie, the theater, the seats, the back of the head of the person in front of me, and I can get a little bit of space between me and the emotion. Now, sometimes I need just a few seconds, maybe a minute, maybe two, so that I can pause. Because in a moment of stress and conflict, what we really want to be able to do is slow things down and make choices. We want to respond rather than react. You know, if you know me, you know that I love martial arts. I teach martial arts, and you know, I'm a big fan of self-defense because, you know, if you think about it, some of the most basic self-defense techniques are just simply avoiding an attack, right? For example, slipping a punch. Slipping a punch, really, I could describe it to you. It's not complicated. You're moving your head, you're turning your shoulders, you're bending your knees. And, you know, here I am telling you this. Do you think that if you were standing in front of a boxer, you could slip a punch after hearing me tell you about that? Probably not, right? What do we lack in the ability to actually slip that punch? Practice. You have to practice. I can tell you all day long about these techniques, but knowing is not enough. You must practice it. And so just like self-defense, because actually, really, the ability to connect with breath during a conflict or a drama is, in fact, in my opinion, your most important self-defense. Conflict and drama kicks my butt all day long if I can't connect with breath, right? Way more than an attacker in an alley. I can get beat up by conflict and drama if I'm not able to utilize good technique. And so what we're talking about really is, how do you train your brain? How do we train our brain to be able to pause and look around in the theater of our mind and connect with breath and connect with the present moment? You know, beginning meditation is really simply about holding the intention to pay attention to your breath. Now, it could be other objects of meditation, but I'm a big fan of breath as the object of meditation because it's always available. We're always breathing. And so having that attention, that intention to keep your attention on breath, it's like throwing darts at a dartboard. You don't try, when you throw a dart at a dartboard, stop and think about it. Do you try to flex certain muscles in your fingers or your arm? Do you try to direct your thumb and your index finger and your middle finger of what to do? Or, oh, I need to flex my bicep right at this. No, we don't think about any of those things at all. We simply hold the intention to hit the bullseye. That's it. We let our body do the rest. If you really observe yourself when you do tasks, you're setting intentions and your body does the rest. When you have an intention to make coffee in the morning or walk to your mailbox, there's hundreds of muscles that are working, but our mind simply set the intention to do whatever the task was. Meditation, and for this matter, connecting with breath during conflict or drama, is no different. We simply set the intention. And so as you're able to gain that ability to become aware of your breath, you will realize how active your mind really is. And for anyone that begins meditation practice, and I encourage you to, I'm hoping to encourage you to try meditation practice. There's many ways to do it, but the meditation practice in some ways is very much like the practicing of slipping the punch, right? You've got to practice a lot for it to actually be there for you when you need it. And so having a daily practice, even if it's for 5 minutes, it's like training that self-defense technique for 5 minutes a day. You're much more likely to have that ability. And as you set that intention to observe your breath, you will realize how active your mind is. Sometimes it's referred to as monkey mind, because our minds want to swing from one activity to the next activity, and it's never ending, right? I mean, have you ever thought about this? Is there an off button for our mind? The answer is no. And I believe that most people that start meditation quit because they think they're doing something wrong, because they can't stop thinking. You sit down, you try to meditate for 5 to 10 minutes and you realize, oh my goodness, my mind is like a wild horse and I'm on the back of this horse and who knows where we're going, right? And what I want to tell you is that's what meditation is. It is not about stopping thinking. You won't be able to stop thinking. That's what happens. Meditation is simply about watching the thinking. And it's a little bit more than that. Let me explain. So in meditation, you have an object that you put your attention on. And so for some people, that might be a prayer. It might be a mantra. Or, like I said previously, a readily available object is your breath. And so we sit down to meditate with the intention to direct our attention to breath. I think that's an easy way to meditate. You can sit in a regular chair. You can do this while you're walking. You don't need anything special to do this. You simply set the intention to feel your breath, observing breath, feeling breath. But very quickly, you will find yourself lost in thought. That is what meditation is. Here's the key. For beginning meditators, it's very common that when you keep doing this, you think you're failing. But in that moment of realizing that you're lost in thought, this is an important thing. It's the key, in fact, it's very important. You have to acknowledge that there is a part of your brain that has remembered that you had an intention to put attention on breath. In other words, I'm meditating and all of a sudden I realize, oh my gosh, I'm thinking about my to-do list. Rather than get frustrated, what I do when I'm meditating is I immediately say in my mind, thank you. I'm happiest when I remember to put my attention on breath. There is a center in my brain that suddenly came online and said, hey, we're thinking, come back to breath. If I get frustrated in that moment that I realize it, it's as if I have negatively reinforced that remembering. It's a bit like a dog that you're trying to train to come back to you, okay? Imagine if the dog is a very scatterbrained dog running all around, and you're saying, hey, come back. And it doesn't come back right away. Finally, it comes back. Do you think you should scold it or reward it? Which one is going to make the dog come back more often? Make sense? Often, as beginner meditators, our frustration when we remember is like scolding the dog that comes back. And that's why it's very difficult to progress. It is very key that you reward that dog that comes back. And so you will get lost in thought. That's the point. And then when you come back to breath, reward that. Smile to yourself. Think about giving yourself a hug. You want to give some sort of positive reinforcement to the fact that your brain brought you back to the intention. And the more you reward that, the more your brain will do that. It is very much like lifting weights. The act of forgetting and then bringing attention back to breath is exercise. The more you return, the stronger your attention becomes. The goal of meditation is not to stop thinking. Rather, it is to keep bringing attention back to breath over and over and over and over again. That is what meditation is, and that is where the benefit comes. Returning to breath is like doing a muscle building activity. And so the more you do it, the stronger it becomes. And after a while, it will become a skill that you can do under stress, very much like a boxer slipping a punch. But it must be well practiced. That's the benefit of the daily practice. Okay, so that's really all I have to say about meditation. It's way easier than we make it. And so many people quit, I am convinced, because they think they're doing it wrong. But in fact, thinking wildly is what your mind does. It's okay. Forgive yourself for that. All right, let's move forward. I want to introduce you to an amazing professor at Yale University. You might know her. Her name is Dr. Laurie Santos. Has anyone heard of this woman? Okay, great.
Yep.
Yeah, she's quite famous because she leads the most popular class in the history of Yale University. This is the happiness class, also known as the science of well-being. In fact, this class had to move several times because I think it's well over 1,000 people now, maybe 1,500 people. The class continues to grow. And if you ever listen to Laurie Santos, she has an amazing podcast. It is spectacular, very entertaining. She interviews people that will blow you away, and the research is amazing. I highly recommend it. Check it out on any of the podcast. Go on your whatever podcast search engine you use and just search on the Happiness Lab. You'll find it. It's free, and you'll learn a lot. And like I say, be highly entertained. And in listening to Dr. Santos talk about the impacts of this class, she talked about students that wrote her and said they were thinking about killing themselves. And in fact, were probably going to do it. They took her class and changed their minds. She had so many students tell her this that she made the class free, online, available to anyone. So you can take this class. I took this class about a year ago, and I thought it was amazing. And it was my motivation for sharing this information with you. And if you take nothing from this talk this evening, it is, trust me, take this class. Because the thing about it is, we all think that we're good at making ourselves happy. And one of the first things that Dr. Santos points out is we are terrible at that. And she points out why. Our brains aren't wired to do some of the things that truly make us happy. And we think we know what makes us happy, but we really don't. And she has shown me all the mistakes that I was making and small little traps here and there that I fall into. And hey, I still do. But the awareness of it has been a life changer for me. And I've certainly developed several habits with her nudging. And I'll talk about some of those habits right here. So, really the way the course works, there's 5 general components. Like I say, she starts it off with all the misconceptions about happiness. She tells you why our expectations are so bad. Then she starts to get into what works. How do we increase happiness? What are strategies to reset expectations? This is key. And then how to put those strategies in place. She calls it rewiring. And what I love about her class is, what we try to do in extension. It's research-based. And so she gives you all the links. You can go to the papers, you can go to the peer-reviewed publications, see how they did the studies. It's amazing. One of the things I love, I liked G.I. Joe when I was a kid. I watched this cartoon, and I always remember every time the cartoon would come on, there'd be this little thing of, they'd inform you about something, and then they'd say, knowing is half the battle. And Dr. Santos is really strong in pointing out that is not enough when it comes to the science of happiness. There's a lot of people that hear this advice, but knowing it is not going to make you happy, and it's not going to make you feel good. You have to put it in practice. Knowing, but not practicing won't get you anywhere. And that is emphasized. So I definitely want you to take that away from what we're talking about this evening. So, this is kind of interesting. What are the things that determine our happiness? Most psychologists estimate that about 50% of our disposition is genetics. And we obviously can't change that. 10% is external circumstances. Sometimes we can change it, but sometimes we can't. The important part is the 40% of our actions and thoughts. And we absolutely can influence that part. One of the first things that she talks about is wealth. A lot of times when people think about, well, how do I get happier? Money, right? Most of the time we kind of think, hey, if I have more money, I'm going to be happier. But these studies have been done repetitively. There are huge studies about the relationship of income and happiness. And there is overwhelming evidence that more money does not make you happier. In fact, in one of the podcasts of Dr. Santos, she interviews a psychologist to millionaires and billionaires. This is a psychologist that works with very wealthy people. And why very wealthy people are oftentimes very unhappy. And it's fascinating. It's very good. But, I'll point out here, there was a very large study of over 450,000 participants, both in large and small cities. And it showed that basically there is this level of income at about $75,000 a year where people would reach a max happiness, right? Because certainly if you're poor and struggling, that's stressful, right? Getting basics met and not having to worry about money will make you happier for sure. But once you get up to an income of about $75,000 a year, which is, hey, that's a great income, right? Happiness doesn't increase after that. And in some cases, it begins to fall off. So winning the lottery and having more material wealth, if we're already in, a place where our needs are met, will not make us happy. And in fact, there's something called the Hedonic Treadmill that explains why material wealth does not make us happier. Here's how your brain works when we talk about the Hedonic Treadmill. You have a desire. Let's say your desire is, I want a new car. My old car is boring. I want a new car. So you get your new car, you go out and you buy it. And wow, you get this huge boost, man. You spend the money and we know your happiness goes up. You get that car, you smell that new car smell, you're driving it around. Wow, look at me in the new car. But we've all had this experience. Maybe it takes a month, maybe 2 months, or maybe 3 months, but you adapt. What was a new car will soon become your car. It's not a new car anymore. It's just your car. You have adapted. And now you're not so happy. That level of happiness came back down. And because you're not so excited anymore, what does that do? Your brain pops a new desire into it and you do the whole other thing again. And that is the hedonic treadmill. Your brain continues to come back to a baseline. That's the adaptation. And we know that. Something good happens, we're up. And then we come back to baseline. Something bad happens and you're down. But then we come back to baseline. The mistake that we make is we think that we can change our baseline. For example, we think that happiness is like getting taller. If I get more happy, it's like all of a sudden I'm taller and that's permanent, right? If I buy that new car, for example, I'm going to be happier and that happiness will be permanent. But of course, that is absolutely myth. Getting happy is not like getting taller. Getting happy is like pumping up the tire on my wheelbarrow where I have a leaky tire, right? You pump it up and it works for a while, but when I go back out to it in a week, it started to deflate again. That's how our brain works. It's constantly going back to baseline. It's constantly deflating. We cannot permanently pump up that tire. And knowing that, I think, helps reset our expectations. for me, this has been a tremendous help. I never really thought about it until this happiness course, but it's so true. I would think, wow, I'm going to get that dream job, and then I'm going to arrive, as if happiness is this destination, or I'm going to retire and then, wow, I arrive, right? I arrive at happiness. No, it does not work like that. Happiness is the leaky tire on my wheelbarrow. You have to keep pumping it up forever. And that's okay. But if you have a different expectation, you will be disappointed. So you should be thinking to yourself, how do I pump up that tire? Or how do I patch the hole? Right? And I think those are two different strategies. That is what is so amazing about the course. This is why I recommend that you take that course online. I can't tell you all the techniques. I don't have time, but they are amazing. I will tell you, one of the huge holes that we have, one of the things that allows our happiness to leak out very quickly is this. We are wired to compare and compete. It's what our brains do. I'll tell you another huge one, and I won't focus on this right now, but our brains are wired to see the negative as well. You know, the quick synopsis, why do we see the negative? Because that's what keeps us alive. You know, if you think about a time where we had predators that might kill us, or we had famine or poisons or warfare, things that truly threatened our safety, our ability for our brain to quickly see a negative threat kept our genes in the gene pool. That's why we express them like that. People that didn't see negative things very easily, they were eliminated from our gene pool. They're not here with us today. But for human beings that were quick to have their brain wired to find negative things that could save their lives, they're here representing our genes. Seeing positive, you know, it's fine, but it's not nearly as important to our survival. So our brains are wired to see the negative, and our brains are wired to compare and compete. Knowing that can help you. So where do we compare and compete most often? Well, these days, a lot of us, and unfortunately a lot of our youth, spend many, many hours in front of the screen. 4 to 6 hours a day in front of the screen is not unusual. And you might think, well, watching TV, I mean, do we really compare ourselves to the people on the television? Absolutely. It's proven. In fact, even if the comparison is irrational, you're watching some show about millionaires or billionaires. Clearly, I know I shouldn't compare myself to a billionaire, but your brain is wired to do that. And it will make us feel less than. In fact, there's a widespread study that shows that for every extra hour of TV, there is an increased spending per week. Right now, I believe that's an increased spending of $4 a week. It adds up. And people might think, oh, keeping up with the Joneses, I don't do that. Our brains are wired for it. One of the huge myths is most of us, when we hear the science of happiness, we think, I'm an exception. You're not an exception. You are part of a brain that is wired by nature to do certain things. Comparing and competing is how our brains are here today. It's how we maintained ourselves in the gene pool. You know, unfortunately, if we spend a lot of time on social media, what we see is what other people have put forward, right? I know that when friends or family post photos on Facebook, do you think they post photos of their drama? Do you think they post photos of, oh my gosh, my marriage, I think it's falling apart? No, they only show us their best face. They show us their best vacation photos. Do you think that somebody posts up there, oh my gosh, you know, my life is terrible, I hate it? No, I mean, maybe sometimes people might be reaching out for a little help, but for the most part, We put the photos of everybody smiling and happy and the perfect flower bed. I don't post photo. Well, I'm not on Facebook. Honestly, I'm terrible at social media. But if I was on more social media, I would show you the photos of like my good garden, right? I'm going to show you the part that I just weeded. I'm not going to show you my neglected beds and the weediness and all the terrible things I failed at. And we compare ourselves to this false representation of our peers. And even though that we know this rationally, our brain is wired to feel like they are doing better than us. Something must be wrong with us. And there are numerous studies showing that the more we are on social media, the less happy we are. I'm sorry to say it. So, in this course on happiness, Dr. Santos continually points out social media is not doing us any good, unfortunately. Hey, there's a lot of great information. I certainly am not suggesting you throw it out, but reducing it down is proven to make you happy. There's no doubts about it, because we can't stop the comparison. Well, there's a whole lot of other amazing tips in that course. I certainly am not going to try and show you that whole course, but let me see if I can mention 5 happiness hacks that Dr. Santos talks about. And again, let me encourage you, take the class. It will change your life. It's free and it's highly entertaining. Check out the podcast. It's free and it's very good. Okay, 5 happiness hacks. Number 1, spend money on experiences, not things. If you've got a little extra money, there's a lot of research showing that if you buy an experience, even a brief one, you're going to be way happier than if you buy a thing. And if you think about it, what we know about the hedonic treadmill, if you buy a material thing, you get the boost, you adapt, you come back down to baseline. If you buy the experience, it's very different. You've got stories, and there is no adapting, because you have that trip and then it's done. You're back to your normal life. So you're not adapting to the vacation. It's now simply a memory and a story. And so it's very different than having the new car that then just becomes the car. Erica's amazing trip to Hawaii, I loved hearing about it, right? That's not something that you adapted to. That's still an amazing trip to Hawaii, right?
George, I think about that trip every morning when I swim. When I'm in the pool, I think about all the places I saw, and it actually makes me feel so happy remembering it. And I can visualize places and things that I saw. And so it's 3 months later and I still am feeling happy and grateful that I got to go.
Yeah, it's a great example. And I think all of us can think of examples like that, where we had this amazing experience and we didn't adapt to it, right? It's still that amazing experience. So, hey, just a little reminder, spend money on experiences. Second, gratitude. We hear this a lot, but really taking the time to write it down, talk about it. Maybe if you have a walking buddy, make it a habit. Hey, ask them. I ask my wife in the morning, tell me 5 things you're grateful for, and we trade them back and forth. Now, here's the deal, and you probably realize this, but let me explain it. When you do the regular gratitude expression, when you know that you're going to have to tell someone tomorrow what you're grateful for today, your brain starts looking for it, right? It becomes like a scavenger hunt. What am I grateful for? You're training your brain to scan the environment for all the things that you're grateful for. So it is an excellent way to train yourself to look for all the blessings. Don't forget that gratitude can also include being grateful for what is not happening to you. This is also called negative visualization. My favorite negative visualization is toothaches. When I was a Peace Corps volunteer, I got cavities. We didn't have fluoride in the water. And every time I visited someone, they would give me sugary coffee because it was a special treat. and I certainly was not going to turn that down. I had to go and get my teeth drilled out. And the dentist in El Salvador gave me several numbing shots, and it did not work. We had to do the drillings, and I felt all of them. I was like this, so very intense and super sweaty. It was one of the most painful things I've ever been through. And, imagine this. Imagine having a toothache that was lasting for weeks, agony, morning and night. You don't sleep right. You can't rest. Continual agony. And then it goes away like that. It would be the most miraculous day of your life. That's happening right now if you don't have a toothache, right? But we don't think about that. I can still walk. That's amazing. If I lost my ability to walk and then suddenly regained it, these are little tricks. These are tricks to remind yourself what you need to be grateful for and what we take for granted on a daily basis. Train your brain to do this. Okay, you heard me talk about this before, but we just can't leave it out. If you want to be happy, it's simple. You've got to get at least 7 hours of sleep a night, and you really need to do 30 minutes of activity a day. If you're not doing any activity, start out at 5 minutes, 10 minutes, but get it up to 30 minutes a day, and your well-being, your happiness, it will go up. There's no doubts. This is proven. We've done other talks about it, but we got to say it. We got to keep saying it. I want you all to feel good. It's not about how you look. It's how you feel. I want you to feel good. Okay, number 4, I highly recommend you establish a daily meditation practice. This could simply be 2 minutes. Train how to slip that punch, right? Train how to connect with breath. And think about what I was telling you before. Reinforce it in your brain when you come back to breath. Remember the dog. When the dog comes back, do you want to scold it or do you want to reward it? You definitely want to reward it. So train meditation like that, and you will be able to connect with breath when you need it. And you can slip those punches. You can connect with breath during a drama and not get swept up in the movie. You can respond rather than react. And my last happiness hack to you, find ways to be kind throughout the day. I know many of you on here are, I got to give a shout. So many super volunteers on here, just the most inspiring people. You make me want to cry. You're so beautiful in this community. And let me tell you, other people see what you do, and they know, and they see how happy you are, and you're teaching us. So please keep doing it. You know who I'm talking to on here. And this is a great message for all of us. All of us want to feel better. And the best way to do that, be kind to people, loved ones and strangers. Do small little things for people on a daily basis, and you are going to feel joy. And I think that there are other people on this Zoom call right now that could talk a whole lot about that. They know the truth of it because they live it on a daily basis. And to those people, let me please say, continue to teach us. We are watching, and we love you for what you're doing in the community. Thank you so much. All right. I'm going to leave a minute or two for questions. I always remind you, check out that local food guide. I'm going to update my photo and get the new local food guide photo on here. Those cooking classes are ongoing. Don't miss them. Hey, check out our Tai Chi stuff. Forgive me for the Wednesdays. I have a crazy schedule. I'm at a training next Wednesday, but I'll send out the schedule. We will get back on track, and I promise you I'm going to find time. I'm so embarrassed I haven't updated my videos, but I'm going to do it. And I'm going to make little tidbit videos, 10-minute, 15-minute video, 5-minute videos, so you can do shorter little Tai Chi snacks when you have a time to maybe work on something specific. So it's coming. I promise I'll do it. It's just been a super busy summer so far. Whew, I'm sweating. All right. If you got any questions, I'm always happy to answer them.
Okay, can I,
George,
I think, Monica, you might need to give everybody the ability to unmute if they want to do that. Or you can chat your questions. Sorry, but
Okay.
oh, there we go.
Okay. Now, how do we get in touch with that place in Yale? What's the happiness? It's
Just go
happiness?
online and search Yale Happiness Course.
Okay.
I'll
Yeah,
be
or
glad
you
to,
can search on Dr. Laurie Santos.
I'll
Okay.
be glad to email that link to everyone. When I send out the link for the survey, I'll send that link too.
Okay, that's a good idea. Thank you.
and I have a question, and I'll let me admit, I'm a big fan of Laurie Santos, and I do have the Happiness Lab on my, listen to it every week, love it. I've not done the course as of yet. Is there a huge difference between her course versus the weekly podcast?
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, the course really emphasizes, she gives you homework assignments.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
And she really emphasizes you got to do these things. Otherwise we're just talking about it.
Okay, great. And can you get it through edX? I mean, I assume it's probably an edX course. But,
Looked
I
like it
think
was,
it's Coursera is
Yeah.
where I did it.
okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
George, can I ask a question?
Oh, always.
Your other sessions that you've done in the Healthy, Happy, and Wise series, are they available to see?
I think Erica did record them. Is that right, Erica?
some of them got recorded. Well, they all got recorded, but I'm not sure they're all posted because I believe in the first one that we had, I was actually in Hawaii, but there was some discussion. The questions got into some personal issues, and we didn't really want to post that on the internet. In fact,
Privacy,
I'm
yeah.
going to go ahead and stop the recording right now.